The familiar drumbeat of trade protectionism has returned to American political discourse. Former President Donald Trump, now President-elect as of November 2024, is brandishing the threat of substantial tariffs against key trading partners. Canada, a crucial economic neighbor, finds itself in the crosshairs. The rhetoric has been bold, with figures designed more for shock value than sound economic policy. This approach unsettles markets and strains international relations, creating uncertainty that benefits no one. Early bluster hinted at tariffs as high as 50% on Canadian goods. Concrete proposals specified a 25% tariff, aiming to create apprehension. This strategy is a well-worn page from Trump's playbook, making harmful proposals seem like a concession. Millions of jobs on both sides of the border depend on the smooth flow of goods and services. A recurring theme in Trump's trade narrative involves the Canadian dairy industry. He often paints a picture of an industry that is unfairly protected by the Canadian government at the expense of American farmers. He asserts that Canada imposes crippling tariffs on U.S. dairy products, citing figures as high as 250 to 270%. This claim has been repeated in numerous speeches and tweets, creating a perception of a heavily biased trade environment. These numbers are highly misleading. While the tariffs do exist, they are not as universally applied as Trump suggests. Such claims serve a political purpose, riling up a domestic base with tales of unfair treatment. By presenting these inflated figures, Trump aims to galvanize support among American dairy farmers and his broader political base. The truth is that these tariffs only apply if U.S. dairy exports exceed predetermined tariff rate quotas, TRQs. These quotas are set to protect the Canadian dairy industry from being overwhelmed by foreign products. Historically, U.S. dairy exports have not breached these quota levels. This means that the majority of U.S. dairy products enter Canada without facing these high tariffs. Under the USMCA, American dairy sales to Canada within these quota limits face zero tariffs. This agreement has been beneficial for both countries, ensuring a fairer trade environment. The USMCA raised the quota thresholds, providing U.S. dairy producers with expanded duty-free access. This has allowed for greater market penetration and increased sales. In 2024, the U.S. exported over $1.1 billion worth of dairy products to Canada, a 55% increase since 2020. This significant growth highlights the positive impact of the USMCA on the dairy trade. U.S. dairy exports remained well below the levels that would trigger higher tariffs. This demonstrates that the trade relationship is more balanced than Trump's claims suggest. Canada's approach to its dairy sector is rooted in supply management. This policy ensures stable incomes for farmers and a consistent supply of dairy products. Import quotas and tariffs maintain the equilibrium of their domestic market. The tariff rate quotas, TRQs, allow a certain volume of dairy imports at low or zero tariff rates. For quantities exceeding these quotas, higher tariffs can apply. U.S. exports have largely remained within these generous quota limits. The USMCA acknowledged Canada's supply management system while securing increased access for U.S. dairy. A dispute settlement panel found Canada's updated dairy TRQ allocation policies permissible. The system operates within the framework of negotiated trade law, not in defiance of it. In November 2024, President-elect Trump unveiled a troubling tariff plan that sent shockwaves through the economic community. He announced intentions to impose a blanket 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico, a move that many experts quickly criticized. This broad stroke threatened to unravel decades of North American economic integration, potentially disrupting supply chains and increasing costs for businesses and consumers alike. These proposed tariffs came with conditions related to drug trafficking and migration, adding layers of complexity to an already controversial policy. Using tariffs as a tool in these areas risks backfiring, potentially leading to increased tensions and economic instability. An executive order to enact these tariffs was reportedly being prepared for January 20, 2025, marking a significant shift in U.S. trade policy. This approach undermines the spirit of partnership between allied countries, potentially straining diplomatic relations. The sheer scale of a 25% tariff on all Canadian and Mexican goods is significant, with far-reaching implications for trade and economic stability. Over 75% of Canadian exports and 83% of Mexico's exports were destined for the U.S. in 2023, highlighting the deep economic ties between these nations. Such tariffs would be a body blow to their economies, potentially leading to job losses and economic downturns. American businesses and consumers would share in the economic hardship through increased costs and disrupted supplies, making everyday goods more expensive and less accessible. In the face of renewed tariff threats, the Canadian government, led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, adopted a stance of measured calm. This approach was not just about maintaining composure, but also about strategically assessing the situation to ensure that Canada's interests were protected. Following Trump's announcement, a direct conversation took place between the president-elect and Prime Minister Trudeau. This dialogue was crucial in setting the tone for future interactions and ensuring that both leaders were on the same page regarding the potential economic impacts. Both leaders agreed to maintain open lines of communication. This commitment to dialogue was seen as a positive step towards resolving any misunderstandings and working collaboratively on shared economic goals. Canada's Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, emphasized the importance of border security and cooperation. She highlighted that maintaining a secure and efficient border was essential for the economic well-being of both nations. The Canadian response aimed to de-escalate the rhetoric while signaling that Canada would not be easily intimidated. This balanced approach was designed to show strength without escalating tensions unnecessarily. Canada is not without its own means of response. The country has a range of economic tools and strategies at its disposal to counteract any aggressive trade measures. During previous trade disputes, Canada demonstrated its willingness to impose retaliatory sanctions on U.S. products. This history of firm responses serves as a reminder of Canada's capability to defend its economic interests. This history of reciprocal action serves as a reminder that trade wars are rarely one-sided. Both nations have much to lose, and the consequences of such disputes can ripple through various sectors of the economy. Analysts interpret Trump's tariff threats as a negotiation tactic. They suggest that these threats are part of a broader strategy to gain leverage in trade discussions and secure more favorable terms for the U.S. The USMCA contains a provision for review and potential renegotiation in 2026. This clause ensures that the agreement remains relevant and can be adjusted to address new economic realities and challenges. Canada's strategy involves navigating this pressure while preparing for the contingency of actual tariff implementation. By staying vigilant and proactive, Canada aims to protect its economic interests and maintain a stable trade relationship with the U.S. The mere announcement of significant new tariffs has immediate economic consequences. Following the November 2024 pronouncements, financial markets reacted predictably. The U.S. dollar strengthened against the Canadian dollar and the Mexican peso. Share markets in Asia and Europe experienced declines. Economists warned of the broader impact these tariffs could have if implemented. The Peterson Institute estimated that the proposed tariffs could cost U.S. households over $2,600 annually. Tariffs act as a regressive tax, disproportionately harming working people. Experts cautioned that these tariff plans could push U.S. import duties to levels not seen since the 1930s. Such a shift would stoke inflation and force a costly reordering of global supply chains. International reactions underscored the potential damage, with China criticizing the proposals. The proposed 25% tariffs pose a direct challenge to the USMCA. This trade pact, which came into effect in July 2020, was a product of Trump's first administration. Imposing sweeping new tariffs would violate the terms and spirit of this agreement. The USMCA was designed to provide stability and predictability to North American trade. Arbitrarily imposing massive tariffs would shatter this predictability. Legal challenges and trade disputes arising from such a breach would be substantial. Canada and Mexico's economic reliance on the U.S. market is undeniable. Retaliatory tariffs would be a near-certain response, creating a lose-lose scenario. The USMCA's built-in review mechanism is subject to a joint review in 2026. Using coercive measures to approach a scheduled review is counterproductive. The enthusiasm for tariffs ignores the lessons of economic history. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930 dramatically increased tariffs on imported goods. The result was a catastrophic escalation of international trade wars. Most economists agree that Smoot-Hawley worsened the Great Depression. Protectionist tariffs invite retaliation and disrupt international commerce. Consumers face higher prices and fewer choices. Exporters find their markets closed off. The steel and aluminum tariffs imposed by the Trump administration in 2018 led to retaliatory tariffs. These tariffs resulted in job losses and increased costs for consumers. the current proposals risk repeating these historical errors on a grander scale. Despite the aggressive rhetoric, there are reasons to believe that this strategy may falter. The economic self-harm to the United States would be substantial. A 25% tariff on all Canadian and Mexican goods would act as a massive tax on American businesses and consumers. The potential for effective retaliation from targeted countries cannot be dismissed. Canada has previously demonstrated its ability to craft targeted counter-tariffs. The prospect of American products facing new Canadian duties would mobilize significant domestic opposition. Trump has a history of making maximalist demands as an opening gambit. The linkage of tariffs to non-trade issues suggests that the tariffs might be bargaining chips. Aggressive unilateral tariff actions risk isolating the United States. The economic logic against these tariffs is strong, and the political blowback could prove too costly. The ramifications of Trump's tariff threats extend far beyond North America. A protectionist stance from a major economy like the United States disrupts global supply chains. The interconnected nature of modern commerce means that even small shifts can trigger significant economic ripples. Emerging markets, heavily reliant on trade, could face increased volatility. European allies already grappling with their own economic challenges may find themselves caught in the crossfire. Moreover, countries in Asia, integral to global manufacturing, might reassess their trade strategies. The International Monetary Fund warns of a potential slowdown in global growth. The uncertainty introduced by such tariffs can stymie investment and innovation, leading to a more fragmented global economy. As nations become more insular, the collaborative spirit that has driven decades of progress risks being eroded. In the end, the costs of such protectionist policies are not confined to any single country, but resonate across the world. The political motivations driving Trump's tariff threats are multifaceted. At their core, they serve as a rallying cry to his base, appealing to a sense of economic nationalism. By positioning himself as a defender of American jobs and industries, Trump aims to solidify his political capital. This strategy, however, is not without its risks. The immediate economic impacts of tariffs can lead to job losses, increased consumer prices, and strained international relations. Moreover, the intricate dance of geopolitics means that allies may become adversaries, and long-standing trade agreements could be jeopardized. Political analysts suggest that such moves are often designed to create leverage in broader negotiations, where the ultimate goal may be less about tariffs and more about reshaping the global economic order. Yet, the unpredictability of this approach can result in volatile markets and uncertain futures for businesses and workers alike. As Trump navigates this complex terrain, the stakes are high, not just for the United States, but for the entire global economy. As we look ahead, the future of US-Canada trade relations is poised at a critical juncture. The historical ties between these two nations have always been underpinned by mutual respect and economic interdependence. Despite the current turbulence, there is a prevailing sense of optimism that cooler heads will prevail. Experts suggest that both countries have too much to lose by allowing trade tensions to escalate unchecked. The path forward likely involves renewed dialogue, aimed at modernizing trade agreements to reflect the realities of a rapidly changing global economy. Both nations have a vested interest in ensuring that their industries remain competitive, their workers protected, and their economies resilient. Collaborative efforts in areas such as technology, green energy, and healthcare could pave the way for a new era of partnership. While the journey may be fraught with challenges, the shared values and common goals of the US and Canada offer a promising foundation for overcoming these obstacles. As negotiations continue, the hope is that a balanced and fair agreement can be reached, one that benefits both countries and sets a positive precedent for global trade relations. While trade agreements and economic strategies often dominate headlines, it's essential to remember the human impact of trade wars. Behind the statistics and political rhetoric are real people whose lives are directly affected by these policies. Farmers in the Midwest, factory workers in Ontario, and small business owners on both sides of the border face uncertainty and hardship as tariffs and trade barriers disrupt their livelihoods. Consider the dairy farmer in Quebec who struggles to compete in an increasingly volatile market, or the auto worker in Michigan whose job is threatened by supply chain disruptions. These individuals, and many like them, are the backbone of their communities. When trade tensions rise, it's their financial stability and future prospects that hang in the balance. Moreover, the ripple effect of trade wars extends beyond immediate job losses. Local economies suffer as consumer confidence wanes and spending decreases. Families may find it harder to make ends meet, leading to increased stress and a decline in overall well-being. The social fabric of towns and cities is tested when economic stability is undermined. It's crucial for policymakers to consider these human stories when negotiating trade deals. Economic policies should not only aim for national prosperity, but also ensure that the benefits are equitably distributed, safeguarding the well-being of all citizens. As we move forward, let us remember that behind every tariff and trade policy are individuals whose lives and futures are profoundly impacted. In the end, sustainable and fair trade relations are not just about numbers, they're about people. By keeping the human element at the forefront, we can work towards more compassionate and inclusive economic policies that uplift everyone involved.